We are live.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome you to this special City Council meeting. We're dealing with two issues tonight. One is a staff report in respect to the tariff working group, and the other is a land sale. So, first of all, I'll ask the clerk if you please confirm that the roll call has been taken.
Through the chair, roll call has been taken.
Members, does anybody have a pecuniary interest they need to declare regarding the two items on this afternoon's agenda? If so, physically raise your hand. Seeing no raised hands, we'll move into delegations presentation. So we have two delegations on tonight's agenda and one presentation with respect to the first item on our agenda. So before we hear from the delegations, I will, as we always do, read the rules that apply to delegations based on the city's procedural bylaw, which are: no person shall display any sign, banner, placard in the meeting room other than materials that, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audiovisual aids necessary in connection with any presentation be made to council. All persons present shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or the making of any gesture that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only on the subject in debate and shall not speak on any other subject. No person shall applaud participants in debate or engage in any conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. So we have two delegations this afternoon, and I'll ask Andy Stracefield if you would please come forward. You've registered to speak to item 4.1, the report of the working group on trade. As you're aware from past presentations, you have 10 minutes to present, inclusive of any questions that members of council may ask you.
Are we on? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, esteemed members of council, both here and away. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Andy Stracefield. Those of you who know me, you know me as a business leader in the community, as well as I am politically an activist for social and business issues, short and small and medium enterprise businesses. I'm a member of many committees and many groups, including several here at the City Council. And at the same time, I was the proponent of the Twin City Agreement with Kamenets-Podilskyi, Ukraine, back in 22 that the council adopted and has taken under its wing as our commitment to help our brothers and sisters overseas in the Ukraine. Today has been a very momentous day. I've been putting out fires and my speech has changed numerous times coming into this building, but unfortunately we are at war, trade war, be it. And based on the research that I did when I did this presentation, based on an article that was written with comments from council and the mayor and the esteemed Dave Prang of the Chamber of Commerce, I put together this plan and to go further the discussion of expanding our economic independence instead of being dependent. So with that said, based on the articles that were written, I'm not going to read through these things. I'll let you look at them. We are vulnerable, actually the fifth most vulnerable city in Canada. And with that specifically, we are talking about automotive parts and manufacturing and agri-food. Now, I am not involved in any of the industries directly. I am in the plastics recycling industry, and I do make parts and things for the automotive parts manufacturing industry. And now we are expanding into agri-food in the form of supporting stuff for farms. This is now going to be interrupted by what is happening south of the border, because we made a business decision in 22 to expand some of our business to the United States. 30% of our business is based in the States and now is in danger. So this was planned upon when we first heard the administration doing their saber rattling. And at least for myself, I protected my company and insulated it as much as I can. Others are not as successful today, but I do want to offer some sort of help to them. Dave Prang, who's here in attendance, was quoted in the expositor of we thrive with certainty as businesses, and no amount of planning can prepare for what might happen next. And that's true. However, we are also politicians. We are also members of society, and we also are part of social groups and affiliations where you're always like the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, you always have to be prepared. And that is where we are here today. So, Mr. Mayor, there were several things that in your article that was highlighted that I was very motivated to move with my initial planning. And besides the initial plan that we have here as a country now, as of this morning, the Prime Minister highlighted, and several different First Ministers, including Premier Ford, we're focusing on our territory, Ontario first, Canada first. I would like us to look at Brantford first, in a sense. So with that, I wanted to move to a conversation about the short term and the long term. You're doing very well with this type of plan. However, we need to look a little bit more beyond that in order to satisfy the gaps that are going to be happening in automotive and agri. And with that, I proposed two things in this presentation. One, a proposal for an international trade director to be based either out of economic development or the CAO's office, in which this person can be the ambassador, can be the negotiator, not the deal maker. We don't want to use that type of deal here, that kind of conversation here. However, now more than ever, we have an airport. We have companies that we brought from overseas here. We have ties with international communities. We should be taking advantage of this. And as I move forward, I will highlight more of this plan. Essentially, what I just said is what the initial roles of an international trade director would work with. They would work not only with the Chamber of Commerce and other community leaders, but with other sectors of industry in Brantford, in Brant County, and then outside of the zone. Remember, the key here is that Brantford needs to grow. It needs to diversify. And there's nothing wrong with us aligning with other cities in this province, in this country, and say, why don't you bring your business to Brantford? We have this type of plan in place, and we have this type of position ready to go to accommodate you. So with that, the number one way of doing it right now is to look at our Twin Cities agreement. Mr. Mayor, you visited Ostrowo-Walpolski several years ago. It was written about in the Expositor. I have spoken to many in the Ukrainian community about our involvement. Our involvement originally with Ukraine was supposed to be symbolic until peace came to the region, and then we would help them rebuild. Peace is not coming to the region, but now more than ever, strategically, we need to be in support of our Ukrainian brothers and sisters. We also need to worry about the hereditary demographics of this city as well. I am of Romanian descent. My grandfather came from Moldova. There is a very healthy Polish community here. All of these communities are going to be faced with dangers over the next year. And we might see a push where they might come here, or a push where they might need support. So with that, this is a perfect opportunity. In chaos always comes opportunity. And this is a chance for us to reach out. As we said before, one of the things that we desperately need is we need to align ourselves with companies and countries, or communities that have a vested interest. In Kamenets-Podilsky, they are a manufacturing giant for the Ukrainian car business. This could be somewhere that we can look to help them, and at the same time, they can help us with their car parts. And at the same time, agriculture on both sides and is something that we can help. I know of various community leaders in the county who have stores and farms who actually go out on missions of their own to help other communities and other countries be more effective and productive. And this is something that we should be embracing. We have multiple universities here. We have students. We have trained people like myself, small, medium enterprise people who want to expand their businesses, don't know how. We've always looked at the Southern model. Unfortunately, the South is no longer an opportunity. As we bring the trade borders between provinces down, we can look at that. But in the meantime, let's go quickly to, I won't call it the low-hanging fruit, but the natural conclusion of our international markets. Also, I was moved by an article last week about a hockey stick manufacturer here in town who's suffering and having some issues. Well, one of the good things about this twin agreement, and if we take it out of the business side for just a moment, we are trying to develop the cultural side. We are looking to build our entertainment center. We are looking to support our hockey team. We are looking to do many things outside of the business world in order to make Brantford a local capital and a local region of entertainment and culture. With that said, we have the ability, as has been seen before over the past century, that there are people like us in their country who have hockey teams and have sporting franchises who would love to be part of what we can do here. We can do a national unity thing where we can do our own Four Nations Cup here in Brantford, but at the same time, we could figure out a way to sell Brantford hockey sticks in Poland and Ukraine. If you look at the Polish city of Ostrowiecki, their twin cities are numerous. They have twin cities not only in France, in Germany, and Italy, but these are extended markets that we can reach out with our hockey stick manufacturer and help them out and help Brantford. And these people can help us by farm teaming or having competitions here, which would help give them their national pride back during a case of war, but at the same time help us expand our interest in our culture here with our community and with the diaspora that live in the city. Again, I don't want to read through these things, but right now the number one issue outside of this morning's conversation with the American administration was the insult of the Ukrainian leader by the American administration earlier in the week. It indicated a context that I don't want to open a conversation of politics here, but the world is not the same place it used to be. We didn't expect to see the type of attitudes and I'll leave it at that from an administration that had prided itself to be the leader of the free world. However, where there is opportunity, we should be there. As Canadians and from Brantford, we should be supporting the local communities that can help us expand our interests, but at the same time help the interests of the Ukrainian and Polish people, as well as help people here in Brantford. And one of that is our trade partnership. The whole idea of working together is to create what we would call in wartime an economic beachhead, where we would land in Ukraine and we would be able to support and we would be able to grow. It's an emerging market. For those of you who have spent years investing in mutual funds, they would have told you emerging markets are where you want to invest your money. You can only invest, in Canada, and Canada's only 3% of the world market. That's true. Now we need to look at the business
Andy,
world.
can you wrap it up about 30 seconds?
Oh my God. Okay. So essentially, we have the ability to work and in various different sectors of this area. I wish I had more time to address it, but essentially speaking, Mr. Mayor, you talked about an open for business approach. This is the great place for us to do it. If we can't do it in Brantford, then Brantford must go to these areas to do it there. And that is where I would push one more time that by getting to where we need to be with an international trade director and work within council and local businesses, we can leverage our strengths. We can make the call to action to city council and to everyone around to be part of this thing, and do not worry about any blowback that comes from this, because we are mandated by the voter to serve our interests, and at the same time, this is where we are. I wish we had time for questions.
Fortunately, we don't. But thank you very much, Andy. We will, of course, be dealing with this subject this afternoon. So I'll now move on to the second delegation. John Odie, Elizabeth Lorenzen, David Prang from the Chamber of Commerce, Brantford Brant.
Okay, sorry. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is John Odie, presenting today as president of the Chamber of Commerce Brantford Brant. Joining me is Chair of the Advocacy Committee and a Chamber Board Director, Elizabeth Lorenzen, and Chamber CEO, David Prang. We are here in support of the report of the Working Group on Trade and Procurement. The Working Group report is a comprehensive analysis of the current U.S. tariff situation and its impact on our local community. We would like to thank the Working Group for continuing to engage with the Chamber of Commerce Brantford Brant on a regular basis to complement its efforts. Our local chamber is part of an extensive chamber network of both provincial and national organizations. We look forward to continuing to share the extensive data and analysis as tariff situations unfold. We'd like to acknowledge and thank Joe Muto and May Legg of the economic development for their immediate efforts to engage the chamber and our shared commitment to strengthen our relationship with each other. The chamber is actively engaged in efforts to understand the impact of tariffs to our members and to the broader business community in Ontario and Canada. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce commissioned a survey of over 500 decision makers through the Leger Group, the results of which we share with city staff and our membership. In addition, we look forward to analyzing and sharing the results of the chamber member survey, the results which will be available hopefully this week. We are engaged weekly with our Ontario Chamber of Commerce colleagues to learn and share best practices across Ontario. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce can also be relied on to provide up-to-date data-driven insights as well as interactive tools as we form a response through its business lab, which can be found in the Canadian Chamber website. We encourage City Council and members of the public at large to subscribe to the Chamber of Commerce Brantford Brant for timely updates on our website, our social media, as well as subscribe to updates from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce and the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. At this time, I would ask Elizabeth Lorenzen, our Advocacy Chair, to provide her remarks.
Thank you, John. So locally, for those of you who've been on our website, we have launched what we would call a tariff page, which we update regularly. I'd like to thank David, our CEO, for doing that. And we know that members of the community and the public are going to that to get some of that information in addition to obviously what is being shared from the city as well. In addition to our collective efforts, we are pleased to share today that we are working with our own members to bring even more insights and strategies to the table. I know that towards the end of March and the beginning of April, we are working on another event to also help the community understand. I mean, today is it is a momentous day to reread the speech before we came here today to try and find those right words, if you will, but I want to reassure, and that's not in my script right now, so I'm going off script, is that we are really working very diligently to truly bring to this community the support, the knowledge, the experience that we really will need. When we have our politicians today, I'm sure everybody heard before they arrived here today, very strong language from our Canadian leaders, language that certainly I have never heard, maybe at the dinner table with my daughters, but certainly not in a newscast. Then we know that the situation is grave. But we are here. Those of you who know our president, John Odie, know the battle scars that he has. He's been in this business for a long time, done business in this community for a long time, and has worked with economic development for a very long time. We all know somebody whose dad worked at Massey's or who went through some kind of change in 2008. So I went a little bit off script, but I wanted to reassure everybody here today that we really are as engaged as you are on this very, I would say, difficult day, but we will get through it. So I'm going to try and find a spot where I can continue on. So if you'll just give me a moment. I would like to thank and acknowledge Ward 1 Councillor Rose Sicoli. As many of you know, she did come to our board and she is liaison at the chamber. She did discuss with us the procurement policy. So the members are very engaged. Councillor Sicoli, I'd like to let you know that. We will be back on March 18th. I can't imagine that we will not be 100% supportive of that. And on that, I am happy to report that we did a little analysis, as you would. I talked to David yesterday, And happy to report, other than Microsoft 365, Councillor McCreary, we note that we talked about that earlier today. We are 100% Canadian in terms of our vendor list. So very happy to report that. And so you will have a strong partner on March 18th, Councillor Sicoli, as we proceed with that, on the table. Our members range from small businesses to the city's largest employers, and we believe that when business prospers, communities prosper. Brantford will do its best on creating the right environment for business predictability, competitiveness, and growth. There will be challenges. However, we've got the working group. We have a mayor who's talked about a Canada First approach. We have a council that is ready to work. We have the working group. We will get there. I'm now not to change or leave the concluding remarks to our president.
This ends our delegation today, and we welcome any questions. However, I would like to end with this. There remains tremendous uncertainty in the global economy. Tariffs from the U.S., supply chain disruptions, labor shortages, rising costs of doing business, and geopolitical turmoil. We all want our economy and people to emerge stronger and with so much uncertainty. As such, Brantford must continue to focus on creating the right environment for business, predictability, competitive, and growth. Remember one thing, Brantford, life is good here. Thank you. We will take any questions.
Members, any questions? Councillor Sicoli.
I don't have a question, but I do want to say, having worked alongside all three of you for many, many years, I know that the chamber has some really amazing, passionate leaders right now that I'm sure will guide the membership forward. And thank you so much for your service,
Thank you.
John and David and Elizabeth.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for the work that you do in the committee. Do you have any idea from the industries, from your members, of how many job losses they may see going forward, or what their potential job losses are as a result of the tariffs? And let's just call it what it is, tariff tax.
Numbers wise, I don't believe we have that. David, do we, Elizabeth?
Nothing specific. What like a best guess for Brantford, and speaking with someone close to the chamber board, businesses are reluctant to share that type of information because it's scary, or it could be very scary. But suffice it to say, and to be transparent about it, it's in the magnitudes of hundreds, if not thousands.
And you will keep us apprised of what that is.
Issue.
Sorry, David. You'll keep us apprised of what that is as it goes along, so we can assist in any way possible.
Yeah, but I think it's important that businesses have the opportunity to respond and plan and adjust to some of the tools and assistance that the Canadian.
And a quick follow-up question: Mayor and I were at a company last week that is solely Canadian company that makes a product that only is sold in Canada. So there might be an opportunity to expand those companies that are working for us that only sell pretzels, for example, only in Canada. So we only buy their pretzels and where they're sold, that sort of thing. We can do that too. Thank you for that.
And anybody we talk to is, if I may elaborate on that, they're pivoting, as Councillor Carpenter said, only in Canada. They're switching to Canada more than the United States. They're looking elsewhere. It's just a matter of everybody banding together, and we as a chamber are committed to working with the Economical Development Office as well as the city, and whatever we are stronger together. So it's just a matter of what can we do, roll up our sleeves, and whatever we can do for this community and for the betterment of all in the Brantford brand.
Yeah, John, I'd like to thank your group for coming out today and presenting, but I have a question for you. So the way in which this community responds to the trade situation, it'll evolve over time depending on what the circumstances are and how the country responds, the province, and of course, the U.S. responding to that. I can see there will be a need to develop a medium to long-term economic development strategy that will make our community more tariff resistant. And In part of that process, we'd certainly be calling upon other interested groups to participate and help and share in developing that strategic plan. And I safely assume that the Brantford Chamber of Commerce would be interested in that.
You have our commitment 100%.
I'm not surprised by that answer. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for coming out. So members, we have the resolution. I'm going to ask somebody to move it and second it and read it. We'll have a short presentation overview from Mr. Bradley, and then we'll move into our two 4-minute speaking opportunities. So who would like to move it? Councillor Collier, that's kind of a half-hearted yes. All right. Who wants to second it? Councillor Caputo. So Councillor Collier, if you wouldn't mind reading the resolution then?
Sure thing. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Caputo, that report 25-127 titled Report of the Working Group on Trade and Procurement be received, and that council support and endorse the advocacy and engagement efforts led by Mayor Davis and the working group on trade and procurement to ensure that municipal voices and the concerns of local businesses are effectively represented and understood by the provincial and federal governments regarding the potential tariffs on Canadian goods entering the United States of America. And that staff be directed to continue monitoring potential changes around provincial and federal oversight on municipal purchasing and procurement, and bring forward any recommendations to amend the city's purchasing policy, such as the incorporation of a defined Buy Canada strategy to council for consideration, and that staff be directed to pause all non-essential conferences and trips to the US until further notice, and that staff be directed to continue engaging with local industries and businesses to determine what municipal supports will be needed to alleviate or mitigate the adverse impacts of US tariffs on these local businesses and industries. And that staff be directed to review and adjust the 2024 to 2031 economic development strategy with a further goal of increasing the resiliency of Brantford's economy from the impact of external influences such as international trade conflicts. And that staff be directed to undertake the following actions in response to the current situation regarding potential US tariffs. 1. Foreign direct investment marketing initiatives. 2. U.S. export webinars. 3. U.S. tariff resource webpage. 4. Regional collaboration on U.S. tariff response. 5. Buy local and buy Canadian promotions. And 6. Continued development of local tourism products. And that the municipal working group on trade procurement be directed to continue to meet and bring forward a monthly report to Committee of the Whole, Planning and Administration until such a time that the U.S. tariff situation eases or is resolved in consultation with the mayor and the CAO.
Thank you very much. So Mr. Bradley, would you mind giving us a staff overview of the report?
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, on behalf of the working group for trade and procurement, I'm happy to present a short report that would just outline some of the findings, as well as actually some of the background on the current tariff situation. So I thought I'd start with a bit of really simplistic background is what are tariffs. We didn't include this in the report, but we felt it just for anyone viewing this, it would be good to remind all of us what tariffs are about. Tariffs are amounts that are charged on goods that are imported from other countries, and they are paid by the companies that bring those foreign goods into that country, and they are paid to the government of that country. So just to clarify that it's not Canadians that would be collecting these tariffs, it would be the American government, and it's businesses that would be paying those tariffs to its government. So typically, although not always, they are a percentage of a product's value. So as we've seen, that seems to be the tariff situation that's evolving now. So why are tariffs used? They're used usually, at least theoretically, intended to protect and incentivize a country's economic output. So the notion is that if business within a country produces more, obviously the country's economy will do better. I'll dispute that in a second. Tariffs, they also are used as a subtax, I guess, to generate revenue for a company, and it does reduce that country's reliance on income tax and other taxes to fund its operating expenses. Most economists, not all, but most believe that tariffs don't protect or incentivize a country's economy. Instead, they increase consumer costs, they reduce economic output, and they result in job losses. And there's certainly a loud set of voices south of the border right now that are proclaiming these as facts. So, Canada and the US have a long and complex trade relationship. It has gone through periods of positivity and negativity. In the 1800s to the early 1900s, there were a period of high tariffs and a lot of trade barriers that very much restricted trade between the two countries. From the 1930s to the 1980s, things did improve. There were high tariffs at the beginning of that period that did contribute to the Great Depression. But over time and into 1988, when the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement was formed, trade between the two countries has improved. And more recently, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which included Mexico in 1994, did eliminate most tariffs between the three countries. However, the Trump presidency from 2017 to 2019 did trigger a new set of trade disputes, and we're seeing the continuation of that today. So Canada and the United States have historically fluctuated through its history regarding tariffs and trade matters based on political and economic forces. So I think most of us know this, and it's been noted by the previous delegations that today, Tuesday, March 4th, the United States did impose 25% tariffs on all goods coming from Canada and Mexico, except Canadian energy, which will face a 10% tariff. And the tariffs are noted by the government to force its neighbors into action around border security, drug trafficking, and illegal immigration. And Canada has responded, as the Prime Minister has laid out today, immediately 25% tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods, as well as additional tariffs coming later this month. I wanted to share this. This is called the Trade Placemat, and it was released by the Office of the Chief Economist here in Canada. I just wanted to note there's two circles there. So the U.S. government has identified Canada being in a trade surplus with the United States, meaning we ship more than they ship to us. But if you back energy out of that, then the U.S. is actually in a surplus of $28.6 billion. And Canadian energy is desirable to the United States and has been for a long time. And if we look at just manufacturing, and that's usually where most economies want to trade their manufactured goods because there's more money in that, Canada does have, the U.S. has a trade surplus with Canada, which means they export more to us than we export to them. So that does dispute some of the messaging that's coming out of the Southern government. In terms of the impacts on local economy, our colleagues with the Chamber of Commerce did cover some of this, and the impacts are largely unknown. We know right now that we estimate 3.8 billion annually is produced here in the Brantford area, which goes to the United States. That represents about 33% of our annual gross domestic product. As we've talked with local business, and it was noted by our colleagues of the Chamber, the full extent of how these tariffs will impact local business is not known, including things like job losses, facility closures, and the trickle-down impacts to the broader pieces of the economy. So what we, I think, all do know is that a longer duration trade war will likely significantly impact our national, provincial, and local economy in very significant ways. So the city, as laid out in the report, does have, I think, a very robust response, and it's a response that's going to continue as the situation continues. The first big response is engagement and advocacy. We are participating in a number of groups working on this, advocating to upper levels of government, including AMO, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus. We're planning on having delegations when we have the opportunity to both the provincial and federal ministries that are involved in this matter, but also with local partners, including our colleagues at the Chamber. We are intending to dig deep into our purchasing policy. There is a notice of motion coming forward shortly on a purchasing policy review. Staff certainly support that. This is a right time to do that. But we're also going to be monitoring the notions of buy Canadian or don't buy American as I was laid out in the report. This is a policy framework that we anticipate after today is probably going to change, which will enable municipalities to focus more of their buying efforts into Canadian products. And we will be continuing with capital budget investments for trade enabling infrastructure. Most of what we build does enable trade here in the municipal sector. And so our intent is to continue, and our recommendation to council is to continue with the capital budget as planned. We are also canceling any non-essential trips to the United States, And a big one for us, and I think we believe that this is going to be where we will add a lot of value to this situation, is to continue engagement with local business. That engagement can help inform our advocacy efforts. It can help to broaden our broader actions to support the entire Brantford business community with broad and general actions, but also specific actions on a business to business basis, because we believe that several businesses will come forward with very specific things that we as a municipality may be able to help them do. And we'll certainly bring those to council as they come forward. We want to update our economic development strategy to include more local economic resiliency focus. Right now, it doesn't have much of a focus. It's a sign of the positive economic times that we've been through over the last decade and a half. And we want to engage in a number of other business supports. We want to market to direct foreign investment opportunities. We want to look at continue to provide webinars and supports to local business on United States exporting. Utilizing our Advantage Brantford website to provide information, which is already up and running and providing quite a bit of business or information to local business. Collaborating with our regional economic development teams to see if there's ways we can share information and share knowledge to support our business community better. We're going to encourage, just as we did during the pandemic, buy local and buy Canadian opportunities and messaging, and continue with efforts to promote and engage or to bring tourists here to Brantford, because that's a big opportunity to provide support to local business. And finally, our intent is, as recommended to council, is to continue the work of the working group. We believe that this is an ongoing initiative, and so we're planning to meet monthly at minimum and more often if required. But we do acknowledge it's a fluid and volatile situation. I think that's some language that actually came out of the U.S. administration. We want to continue to build knowledge around this situation. We want to react to the situation, which is rapidly changing, and we want to continue to take proactive steps as we recognize them, and as our business community says, we need you to help with this. So our intent is also to report monthly to council. Your worship, that's my presentation, and our staff team is here to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, does anybody have any questions of staff regarding the report before we go into discussion? Yes, Councilor Martin.
Yes, thank you. Through you to staff. Have you looked at the opportunities that will present themselves if interprovincial barriers are brought down?
Through the mayor to the councillor, we haven't done an in-depth review of that just yet, but part of this working group's mandate will be to be looking at those, the lessening of those interprovincial barriers and what that would mean for Ontario and, of course, the city of Brantford.
Well, hopefully they come down soon and we can see some opportunities to take advantage of. Thank you.
Again, questions for staff on the report, Councilor Carpenter?
Yes, thank you for a very detailed report. In the report, we talk about, are we going to highlight Buy Canadian? But are we going to present a list for Brantfordians to look at what is Canadian product, and are we going to expand industries that do make product here that we can also expand to other cities and other provinces for buying that product from Brantford local industries that make Canadian product?
Through the mayor, Councillor Carpenter, that is something we are currently looking at, and as recent as today, with these ongoing changes and the fluidity of everything, Premier Ford has announced that he will be focusing on for groceries, for those types of things, or implementing a Buy Canada First, and ensuring that those products have an emblem or a Canadian symbol on them to assist purchasers of products within our community and Ontario, to ensure that they know that they're buying local and buying Canadian.
Next questioner's list, Councillor Sikoli.
I was just hoping for some clarity. I see referenced a lot the working group, and I refresh my memory. We have two different working groups. We have one that consists of senior leadership and key departments, and then one that was Mayor Davis, Councillor McCreary, and I believe Councillor Hunt. Was that this, or is that something else? It's been a long month, guys, just refresh my memory.
Through your worship, and it has been a long month. And it's only the 4th.
I know.
So, Mayor Davis, through his strong mayor's direction, set up a staff working group, a senior staff working group. I'm not aware of a council working group that's formed at this time on this
A
subject.
different one then, I think. Thank you.
Councillor Sluss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd just like to say thank you to the working group. There's obviously been a lot of work put into this, and it's invaluable information that's being gathered and assimilated in a way that we can understand it. But my concern is, do we have a mechanism to allow people to be able to make intelligent choices? Like things that we're buying every day, like gasoline and that there's American companies, there's Canadian companies, but it becomes a mishmash. And I think people are really hungry to know exactly what they can do to support Canadian and to support local. And I think it's important that we get out there, these lists, and I'm sure they're long lists because there's a lot of products and a lot of services that that people purchase every day. We don't really realize how much we do purchase, but we purchase a lot every day. But we'd like to be able to do it, I would think, knowing that we're supporting local and supporting Canadian. That is there some type of brochure or list or something on a website where people can go to get instant clarity on that they're doing what they think is the right thing? Is there such a vehicle available, or do we need to create one?
So through the chair to the councillor, Nicole Wilmot, Commissioner of Community Development. So that's an excellent point. And that's the focus that will be, that information will be on the city's website. So we will be monitoring that situation and providing information as it becomes available and doing our own work as well to provide that information, provide links to relevant resources. And then working with our communications group through the working group to provide, advertisement that these types of resources are available and where to direct the public to find them.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll throw the floor open for discussion now. 2 4-minute speaking opportunities. Councillor Curry.
Yeah, thank you. I do have questions. I see the reference to non-essential trips to America. Do we have a list of such travel for 2024?
Through the chair, we did do some research in developing the report. We did find that there was 7 trips to the US in 2024. And the total spent was just over $12,000.
Fire service often goes there to buy fire trucks, which are only made in America, not made in Canada. I would have to think that would, if it's required, that would be a necessity, correct? If we're buying trucks this year, and I don't know if we are.
Through the chair, yeah, we would certainly use, our best judgment to determine what would be essential and what would not be.
But I think for the purposes of clarity, I don't believe we make any non-essential trips anywhere, do we? They're all budgeted and needful.
Through the chair, yes, I would say that they're budgeted for, yes.
Yes, thank you for that clarity. Less folks seize upon that phrase in the report. Would not one expect that much of what's on our plate today should be something that had previously been addressed and looked after by the government of Canada? We are not only a subnational entity, we're a municipality, 3 notches down on the tariff belts and the interprovincial and intergovernmental relationships. Is this just one more thing that we're going to end up doing because nobody else has done it?
Through you, Your Worship, we've chatted a little bit about the municipality's role in a trade situation. The federal government usually drafts policy. They go out and negotiate trade agreements. The provincial government tends to go out and find specific businesses to bring into the province. And the municipalities, we really help land those businesses. We bring them to sites and we bring them to the development process. So, but the municipality's role is broad. We provide a lot of local business support, and local business is usually going to look towards its local government first before it looks outward. So we believe we do, as a municipality, have a role. We have a number of ongoing initiatives, such as the BRC, such as our business contact process. We have a business concierge program. So we have a lot of activities right now that help local business. We believe that those can continue and expand to help business through this.
So our local government here is working like the dickens today. I gotta think, surely the Liberal government must be in session today, going from morning till midnight, doing similar work to this. Are they? I can answer that. No, they're not. Thank you.
Right, next on the speakers list, I have Councillor Van Tilburg.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. We really shouldn't be having this meeting today, but we have to have this meeting today. The President of the United States invoked the Emergencies Economic Powers Act on the basis that Canada had infiltration of drugs and fentanyl crossing the borders along with illegal immigration into their country. That was mentioned in November 2024. Immediately, politicians, industry were concerned. The chill was felt immediately. I know businesses started planning immediately. I made my own inquiries into our local MP, no less, and many others, that we do need to tackle these issues. I think it was heard by the Prime Minister last night that we had tackled those issues to address the conditions that the President of the United States had mentioned. Those tariffs are now applied under the belief that we haven't. Those tariffs represent an existential threat to the Canadian economy, to Brantford locally. We're the fifth in line. President of the United States has stated he wanted to make Canada the 51st state. He has stated that he wanted to submit Canada through economic pressure. That is the existential threat. This is not the same trade negotiations of 2018, where it was tit for tat trade items. Our council took a role in the steel industry at that time, passed their own resolutions. Those were very negotiable trade disputes that were worked out. They were worked out in 2018, and then they were implemented into the new, what I call the NAFTA 2 agreement. We call it CUSMA here. That's just 4 years ago. Steel, aluminum was covered, as many other things. Today, everything's on the table, along with steel and aluminum facing an extra 25% threat. Those are going to be devastating to our economy. One of the things that has been brought into this conversation is to reach out to businesses in the community and community groups. It was also mentioned that businesses don't wish to disclose their business situation, their business plans, because that's not wise business. It is known, and I've been on, I got to tell you, I spent a lot of time behind the scenes with my other hat, that the appreciation of organized labor, speaking with the governments at different levels, and they need to speak with our local municipality. We need to reach the labor. Labor does know what's happening within their industry. Businesses and labor in these circumstances work together. They work very hard together. Sometimes a business with entities all around the globe does not have the freedom to state the things that they need to be said, and the unions may say that for them. So certainly reach out to the Brantford District Labor Council. You will see also generally the CLC and the OFL do their best to provide lists of what Made in Canada is. The government's been not in political session, but they have not stopped working. back when we went to from a
Time's over.
tariff,
Can you wrap in 15 seconds?
I would like another speaking opportunity. Thank you.
Got it. So I'll move on to Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I know that we've spoke a lot about lists, but I really think, and I'm looking at this from the standpoint of a business person myself. We have customers that probably 6 to 8 weeks ago started asking about our Canadian products, our manufacturing capabilities, and being a Canadian company. But I think instead of a list, I think perhaps when I want to say like a section in the grocery store, you want to buy Canadian, you go over here. The milk from Canada, from the Canadian producers, is in a widely marked section that says Canadian. So whether it's the working group or the Chamber of Commerce, I think people want to buy Canadian, but they also, whether it's getting gas or running in to get a bag of milk, they want to be able to make that decision to buy Canadian immediately. And the more we as businesses do to promote our Canadian products, the easier it is for consumers to be able to do the right thing that they want to do. So those are just some of my ideas, but you've got to think of it from the purchaser's perspective and being able to make it an easy decision for them. Like I said, whether it's an entire different section in the grocery store or a big Canadian flag hanging over the dairy case that says everything in this case is a Canadian product. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to wish staff a very, very good luck in trying to figure out what's Canadian and what isn't. I think that's a very hard process to get our heads around. Comments have been made earlier about the grocery business and so forth, and I can tell you from experience that grocery products are all manufactured within our own country, although the parent company might not be from our own country. What I'm looking at and asking is the exclusion of some products that are going to be an everyday essential that we've excluded from this. And if we're going to buy only Canadian produce, we're going to be a very limited variety of what we're going to eat, and that includes English cucumbers, tomatoes, and some lettuces. Everything that we procure comes from outside the country. Could we not add product of Mexico to that? Because if I was running the Canadian government today, I would be procuring more out of Mexico than I would ever do out of the United States of America. I'd be procuring more out of South America that actually are growers versus anything out of America. So just a question, and want to know whether or not that's part of it. A cell phone we all have certainly isn't a product of Canada. The cars that we drive, I don't believe are any products of Canada. So I don't know how we're going to do that, but I certainly wish you all the luck on how we're going to be able to get that in place, at least give us some kind of a scope. As for everything else, I will wait for my second speaking opportunity to tell you why we got in this mess in the first place.
Can't wait for that. Councillor Scully.
I can't wait to hear what you think, Councillor Caputo. CAO Michael Bradley gave us a pretty strong overview of the repercussions of trade, but free and open trade is a model that benefits all economies and all parties. It spurs and drives innovation, because when you're in a competitive situation, you tend to find efficiencies through innovating with technology, and that in itself creates more competition, which drives prices down. Unfortunately, we have some short-sighted leaders to the south that's going to make this very, very complicated. But as mentioned in the delegation and as well up here, I do have a resolution that I was working on, and for quite some time, a little bit of foreshadowing perhaps that the timing of when I was bringing it forward lends to some overlap between these two different reports that are coming forward. But that'll be coming forward March 18th for council's consideration, and it will review opportunities in our procurement policy to support Brantford's local economy here. And I think that'll be a great supportive piece to what we're approving here today. There's no big solution, unfortunately. There's lots of little things that we're going to do to ease the pain, and all we can do is try to remain agile and resilient in the face of these external circumstances. But a wise man once taught me that oftentimes great growth comes in the face of great crisis, and I have full support in Canadians to stand up and to show their resiliency and to come out stronger at the end of the day when this does ease. So thank you very much to the working group for everything you've done here. Like I said, no great solution, but I'm really happy with what's been brought forward, and I look forward to what else we're going to do moving forward through this.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, this is a weird situation. The only certainty in this whole thing is uncertainty. It's fluid, it's changing, it changes every day. And that's one of the reasons why the working group has decided to meet monthly or when necessary, because there could be a change come tomorrow that would require them to get together and have a look at things. One of those being I believe currently it's illegal for us to prioritize local business or Canadian business in our procurement. And I'm hoping that the federal government will initiate changes in that so that we can buy Canadian as a means of enhancing our procurement of Canadian goods. I wonder if staff could comment on that quickly.
Your worship, I'll give that a try, and Robin's with us in the back, who is speak more in depth on Canadian purchasing. But so I think buy Canadian, municipal procurement around Canadian, buying Canadian is a changing landscape right now. There was a legal opinion that came out last week from Federation Canadian Municipalities. A lot of other municipalities are digging into this topic quite aggressively right now. So I think as Councillor Sicoli mentioned, the review of the purchasing policy is timely right now. It may give us a chance to look into how do we prioritize local companies, how do we buy Canadian through municipal procurement. So again, it's a quickly changing landscape right now, and I think over the next couple months, federal and provincial rules may change to enable us to do this better, and maybe we can prioritize municipal purchasing towards Canadian and local companies.
Thank you. This is the type of resolution where before we had a system that recorded all votes, I'd ask for a recorded vote, not because it's contentious, because it would show that council is unanimous behind this and fully in support of everything that the working group is doing. But I think when the vote is recorded, we'll see that it's unanimous and the objective will be achieved. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. I think I'll take 2 speaking opportunities. Here I go on the first one. You know, there's no question that Brantford's economy is deeply tied to trade with the United States, and the Trump tariffs are no question a direct threat to local businesses and jobs. And the longer the Trump tariffs remain in place, the greater the damage will be. And in my view, I agree with our provincial and federal leaders. These tariffs are completely unjustified. President Trump uses an excuse, the flimsiest of excuses, and that having to do with fentanyl and immigration. We know it's flimsy. We know all he's doing is trying to give himself legal cover, doing something that under the American Constitution, it's Congress that should be doing this. So what's the real reason? Been looking at reading a number of articles, et cetera. I mean, it could be that he wants to renegotiate NAFTA, but I don't think there's any indication that's what he wants to do. That's what he did 4 years ago. And I think he called himself an idiot for actually signing that agreement. I think if you look at what he's doing, I agree with the Prime Minister that he either wants to cripple Canada, so we agree to be annexed, or like the Ukraine, he wants us to give up our mineral wealth and Arctic sovereignty in return for tariff-free access to the US. I mean, there's nothing else that can explain what he's doing. And in response, I agree with the Premier and I agree with the Prime Minister that it's necessary that we hit back hard and quickly with all of the tools that are available to us, because I think it's pretty obvious that the only thing that President Trump reacts to is what the American public wants or what the stock market tells him. I think we have to get the message through loud and clear to the American public that there is nothing but hurt for them as well in this unjustified trade war. And so the only way you can bring that to their attention, I think, is using all the tools available to us in a graduated basis. So I certainly support the efforts of the Prime Minister and the Premier in that respect. So 3 weeks ago, realizing that probably what Trump was doing was not bluster, myself and many other mayors, we gave our staff a strong mayor's direction, as I did. And that was for really three purposes. One, to determine what the local situation is with local business, what the impact of tariffs might be on them. Consider what might be done to help businesses in our community survive and be able to, and or local, regional, local managers of 20 of Brantford's largest employers. And I must say they've been very forthright. And I'll tell you, it really, truly is amazing what we produce in this community. I mean, we produce all the Tic Tac and Nutella used in North America. Many of the EV, electric vehicle engine cores, are made right here in Brantford. Much of the raw stock for generic drug products are produced here by Apotex. Hockey sticks, the only hockey stick manufacturer in North America. Most of Tim Hortons baked goods for their stores in northeastern North America here. Almost 60 to 70% of the egg cartons used across North America. Also interesting, some of the critical components for the Abrams tank. So we supply the American industrial complex right from here in Brantford. And, you know, what I heard, the common denominator, what I heard is that 60, depending on the industry, 60, 80, 90% of all their product is going to the States, almost without exception in the industries that I contacted. And so, although that's been a real strength of our industrial and economic development strategy, and there's a lot of diversity out there, the Achilles heel is that most of the large industries in Brantford, most of what they produce goes to the States, and that leaves us vulnerable. And I want to talk to you about some of the ingenious strategies industries in Brantford are using, but I'll wait for my second speaking opportunity because Councillor Van Tilburg, no, Councillor Carpenter, you're next for speaking opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And ditto to what you said about our leaders, our federal leaders and our provincial leaders, and standing up. So I just like to say that Brantford's been through this before. We've been not through this trade war, but we've been through a difficult time before where we had lots of unemployment and we had to work together. I mean, that's why our phrase is industrial prevention, because we're a hardworking community. We care for each other and we care for our neighbors and we make sure things work. And if this is protracted for a long time, there'll be a lot of pain and suffering. So we need to work together as a community and as neighbors and look in on each other and see what we can do. We're going to have to find funding to get through this. Secondly, we know that I agree with the mayor. I think what Donald Trump wants, he wants Canada. I think that's not a joke. I think this has happened. Just go look in your history in 1930 and see what tariffs did when the United States was a tariff country back then, and read your history and you'll find out that it's about to repeat itself. So this is where we're at. They believe tariffs will actually fund the United States to make them great again by paying down some of their deficit using the tariff funds. Mostly the northeastern part of the United States will be feeling the tariff effect, but majority of the United States will not. They will not. They're not even on the radar. They don't even know this is happening. It's mostly the impact on the people that we do trade with in the United States. They understand. They're still our friends and neighbors, and they care for us as we do for them. But the majority of the United States won't be affected by this until it'll take a while. But even when it comes to their products, they need our fertilizer. And the 25% tariff on our fertilizer will have an impact on the cost of their goods to their people, even if they produce them there and sell them there, it'll still have an impact. So I want to highlight that one company in particular, I raised it earlier, Grissom Bond, for example, is a company in Brantford that the mayor and I visited last week. They make pretzels and they make other things, but the pretzels are sold at Farm Boy, at Longo's, and soon to be at Giant Tiger. So if you want to buy pretzels, only buy those pretzels from that company. They have 75 employees, and if they expand that business across the country, we only buy Canadian, their business could expand. So there are businesses in our community can expand as a result of this, and there are others that are going to have loss in jobs. And I just want to remind us that Brantford's very resilient. We always have been. We'll work together. We'll get through this together as long as we pull together as one team. Don't make it political about this party or that party. Let's make it about Brantford Brant, the province of Ontario and the country of Canada. And if we stick together with that in mind, we'll get through this in the long run. And we have other trade opportunities, expanding our trade opportunities. The problem is we've been too dependent on our closest neighbor, which is convenient. And why wasn't it? We were good friends. We need now to know not to trust our neighbor, that we have to work and find new trade routes and other trade partners, open up the free trade across the provinces and into Europe. There are other opportunities, so we need to make sure we expand those and lessen our dependency on America, unfortunately. Thank you.
Councilor Van Tilburg.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the words you mentioned earlier. The United States has been our friend and ally for decades upon decades, and yesterday they just became our neighbor. That's changed on how we do trade. And so if we look at that pre-free trade era where we did have a tariff, there were winners and losers. There always is in a tariff economy. Tariffs sometimes are good for nations, but they're not good for economies. And so the United States has decided that tariff will be good for their nation, and they do forced trade upon us. That's not the way to go. Now, when we looked at labeling, one of the things when we do those free trade agreements, the labeling stops. They force you to say not made in Canada, not to do that, because we become integrated. That makes things more difficult, but we can start threading the needle on figuring what is made in Canada versus what is made in the United States. I think the public have seen what we're trying to do. We're trying to not only buy Canadian, but more importantly, as Councillor Caputo noted, we're really trying not to buy American. It's more like an American boycott, which is why when Councillor Caputo says things like produce in Mexico and that, yes, we want produce in Canada or parts from Canada, but we're looking at the ones who have decided to make an economic threat upon us. So that is where I think the public mindset is. I think we've all unified together. I'm very, very impressed by the report that's in front of me from the working group. I think that they will be probably meeting more often than not based on the volatility of what happens south in the border. I've not been able sometimes to write 3 paragraphs before the optics change. So I think good luck to us all. This is a good step forward. I think unity is what's going to prevail, and elbows up.
Yeah, just to finish what I was saying about local industries. So there are fortunate few that operate in an environment where they really have few competitors and they can easily pass on the tariff to the American customer, but they're few and far between. But it's really ingenious what some of the local companies have been doing in preparation. They've been preparing for several months now. A lot of it has been stockpiling products, shipping it down to the States, stockpiling it there, stockpiling supplies they bring in from the States, already looking, expanding into Canadian markets, assuming our tariffs will reduce the competitiveness of American suppliers to certain products. Some are actually looking at already retooling and selling into the UK and Mexico, which evidently are very free trade orientated. But unfortunately, those are strategies that probably that protect them for several months. If these tariffs remain in place longer than several months, then unfortunately, probably there'll be downsized product being manufactured in Europe or the States, moving where it is that it's actually produced to comply with the tariff regulations. And that is when I think we would see there to be a very substantial impact if these tariffs remain in place for longer than 3 to 4 months. And there's ways to protect and encourage companies to help them as they retool, but that doesn't take place overnight. They can't just turn a dime and change how it is they produce what they sell. But I think it's critical that if we look to the long term, that It's important that if we're facing an economic downturn, that we consider municipal infrastructure projects where there'll likely be federal and provincial grant money available to do that. It's a great way to kickstart economic activity in a slowdown. It's been done many times before. But for me, the greatest concern that I have is that if we get into the situation where we're facing companies making really difficult decisions to adjust to the tariffs, which could be, efficiencies, it could be moving production, it could be a plant being closed for a period of time as they retool to sell into the UK or some other product here in Canada, it's going to affect people and the people of our community, those who work in these companies. And that is probably one of my major concerns, having been on council in the 1980s when Massey's went down, and remembering that. And how did we get through that? And how did we get through the Great Depression, World War II, and COVID? As Councillor Carpenter said, we got through it by working together and pulling together. And I can remember for the 1980s, I mean, there were people who weren't affected by the situation at Massey. And so we all pulled together, those who weren't affected. They gave more money to charities. They did more volunteer work. We helped one another. And I am extremely confident that if in fact these tariffs continue for some time and that we suffer an impact here in Brantford, I'm confident that we've demonstrated time and time again, we'll rise to the challenge and we will take care of one another and work together. And long term, as we did after the 1980s, we'll reinvent ourselves. We'll come up with an economic development strategy that'll make us more tariff resilient. But honestly, I hope we don't have to go there. I hope the efforts of the federal and provincial governments and even the mayors, as we do our advocacy group with other mayors down in the northern U.S. states, that we're successful in convincing American authorities, don't do this. It doesn't make sense for anyone. I agree with Premier Ford. Let's work together. Let's create an economic prosperity, an island of prosperity in North America. Lastly, I want to thank very much staff for, at a moment's notice 3 weeks ago, giving this top priority. I think we all saw that it's needed and we'll continue to give this a top priority. I asked for members of the public, whether, as Councilman Tilburg said, they're part of our union community, whether they're part of our social services community, our business community. If this really does start to escalate, we're all going to have to come together and take care of one another and take care of our community. I'm confident we can do it. I pray we don't have to. So with that, I'll go to Councilor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm inspired. So I vowed I would never use this phrase again, but I have to today. Mike Tyson said it. Everybody's got a plan until you get a punch in the mouth. And unfortunately, we never had one as a nation. And unfortunately, the punch in the mouth might come at the cost of the American people, based on the decisions made today, and who knows where they're going forward. But we're in a situation today because we left ourselves completely exposed. We lead a lot in the world in natural resources, minerals. 25 years ago, Alberta blew up with oil and built an entire economy over a 25-year period. Yet, unless I'm wrong, I don't believe we ever built a refinery. So we can draw oil and then we purchase it back. Why didn't we build a refinery? We've got to a point for the last 25 years where our federal government hasn't looked at ourselves as being a growth development area. And because of that situation, we certainly left ourselves exposed. And why wouldn't President Trump want to come in here and want to do all that? But it's time for us now to come up with a plan. Listening to our staff here today and the plan that we have here to try to build Brantford, I applaud it. I look forward to it, and I'm a part of it. But we need to be able to look at this because I don't know how long these tariffs will last. The Dow dropped another 700 points, or close to 700 points today. It isn't going to do anything differently over the next week. Inflation is going to rise in the US and it's only going to get higher, and it's going to affect us as well. And at some point, something has to give. So we need to work diligently with the US to get these tariffs removed, but we need to work diligently on working with other trade partners that don't include just the United States of America. And that's where it really lies. So I'm hoping that our federal government, provincial government with Premier Ford, the federal government work together in trying to ensure that our long-term prosperity is there. When we talk being united, we are the most proud to be Canadian when we're actually outside of our own country. That's when we tell everybody we meet we're Canadians. And now's that time for us to get together, be united, and that changes today. So tonight, President Trump will be addressing Congress. I look forward to hearing that. I look forward to seeing the repercussions of that. But at the same time, we need to come up with something that we could do to not only just look at tariffs, which nobody even knew what they were 5 months ago, to making sure that we build a long-term prosperity plan that's going to be the best for Canada. I think that's it.
Councilor Curry. Mayor, thank you. And your words about the human cost of all this are resonant, certainly. Your allusion back to your previous term on council when there was also an economic downturn, that's just a coincidence. I'm pretty sure everybody just recognizes that. But I do want to say this. At that time, the impact on this community, I guess, was pretty devastating. And out of that came a recognition by municipal councils of the day that one cannot live and die by major industries and that there was a need for diversification. And that's why you see the number of producers and industries in Brantford today that are selling all over the world, but particularly in Canada and America, because of that recognition at the time. And perhaps out of this will come a similar recognition that we need perhaps to look at smaller markets here and perhaps begin to take advantage of the reciprocal tariffs. And out of this, perhaps those folks who are transitioned out of manufacturing jobs that are reliant upon American clientele will land as entrepreneurs. We have an entrepreneur that spoke to us today who's been very successful. I can see that may be an outcome of this as well. But you've got to look in the mirror. There's not many places in Canada where the hats we're wearing that say buy Canadian or don't sell out Canada are made in Canada. Most of them are made in China and they're printed here. You've got producers here that find it more profitable to grow dope than to grow tomatoes and grow radishes. I think there's a lot of mirror looking that we as a community have to do, we as a country have to do. We can just thank God that we've got leaders like Doug Ford and Danielle Smith. And hopefully we'll have some provincial, some federal leadership soon to come. I do want to leave one final thought though. I hope nobody's going to make this about Canadians and Americans. A lot of folks that I know have relatives in America. I have certainly. A lot of folks I know have friends in America. I do certainly. And it breaks my heart to hear the Prime Minister, if it's accurate today, telling Canadians they should be booing the American national anthem. That is just over the top and rude. We have American teams that come here to play at the Brantford District Civic Center. And I thank God that and some of my friends, Councilor Carpenter's been there when American teams have been here. And our people are very well behaved. And I hope that will continue and that people don't catch this anti-American disease that seems to be prevalent. Americans are human beings, not much different from us. Let's treat them individually with the respect that they deserve and hope they'll do the same with us. Councilor Carpenter.
Yes, thank you for your words, Mr. Mayor, as well, by the way. No, I haven't heard our Prime Minister tell anybody to boo the American national anthem, and I hear it, and I disagree with it too. We have a lot of American friends in the United States, and not everybody voted for Trump. And there's a lot of people that when you boo the anthem, you're booing those people as well. So I know some people think booing it sends a message right across America, but I think is completely disrespectful. The national anthem represents the whole country, and we're not angry at the country. We're angry at the current administration that's trying to hurt us and hurt Ukraine. And that's not who we're angry with. So I would agree with the previous speaker. We do not need to boo the national anthem, and I've never heard the prime minister say that. So I'm glad that I haven't. I certainly would be upset if I had heard that, but I haven't heard that, and I don't think that's factual. But
Sorry.
none of us should be actually booing.
No, Mayor, I think the counselor just accused me of lying and I think you should.
No, I just said I didn't think it was
It's
factual.
not factual.
Hang on,
it's a
you
lie.
make your point of order, okay? Well, it's actually a point of personal privilege. And I take your point, and I don't think I heard Councillor Carpenter say that. I think I hear him saying he might disagree with you.
He said it was not factual. I don't know how much more clear.
No,
that would be.
I said I didn't believe it was factual. That's what I said.
Yeah.
I think I'm entitled to my belief still, am I not?
Go ahead and finish your comments, Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you. Are you gonna rule?
I ruled that your point of privilege is not valid.
I'll challenge the chair on that. Councillor Carpenter's remarks would lead the viewer to believe that I lied. I don't think it could be any more clear, so I'll challenge the chair.
All right. Yeah, we only have an appeal mechanism for points of order, not point of personal privilege. So I ruled that out of order.
I challenge your ruling that it's out of order.
We'll continue on. Councillor Carpenter, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to support actually a previous speaker in saying that we should not be booing the national anthem and not be booing Americans in general. We disagree with the trade policies coming forward by Mr. Trump, and we need to be all united. This isn't about this political party, that political party, or this political leader, or that political leader, but all Canadians pulling together, rowing in the same direction, because we've got the fight of our lives and economic warfare with an administration in Washington that does not care about Canada whatsoever, except to own us, in my opinion. So I just want to say, when we're at the games and Flint plays the Bulldogs, please stand up proudly when the American national anthem is being played, and sing louder when the Canadian national anthem is being played. Let's all of us sing louder. Let's all of us start hanging Canadian flags outside our houses. Let's so proud we are. One way to unite Canada is to have a common enemy. We have a common enemy right now. So let's unite Canada. Let's take the advantage of pulling Canada together, stronger together, and let's not have any political rhetoric. Let's talk about working together. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Call the vote.
Through the chair, item 4.1, carries unanimous and recorded vote. Members of council voting in favor. Councillors Sullivan, Celeste, McCreary, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samuel Carpenter, Martin, Caputo, Sicoli, and Mayor Davis.
Okay. So we'll move on to item 2. And we have one resolution on the floor this evening having to do with the Colborne Point disposition. And if I could have a mover and a seconder, and if the mover would please read the resolution. Councillor Sicoli, you're moving it. Councillor Caputo, you're seconding it. Councillor Sicoli, could you please read the resolution?
That the sale of lands known as Colborne Point be approved and that the proceeds of this disposition be deposited to a capital funding envelope reserve, and that the city clerk be directed to place the agreement of purchase and sale bylaw between the corporation of the city of Brantford and 10001566678 Ontario Inc. on the signing bylaw.
Okay, any discussion? So, Councillor Carpenter, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll leave this up to you, but the proceeds be deposited in the capital funding envelope. I'm not too sure we won't need a funding envelope for what we're going to go through in the tariff situation. Is there an opportunity for you to think about where this funding money goes? And we may need to build up some money to support our local businesses locally in the difficulty times ahead. And I'll leave it up to you to rule on whether you think that's the right thing to do or not. Thank you.
Well, I think it's a good question. Mr. Bradley, can you help us in that? Or Joel?
Through the chair, certainly as part of this exercise, we are looking at where we might be able to draw some funds from if we do, or we're in a position where we need to provide some assistance to businesses or folks in the community. So we're certainly looking at our available balances within our contingency and some of our other discretionary reserves. The sale of this property has been topic of discussion for quite some time, and we've always indicated the proceeds would be going to the capital funding envelope. We are relying on these proceeds to continue with our capital program at this time. So for this amount of money at this current time, I would still recommend capital funding envelope, and staff will take that back and be looking at some of our other discretionary reserves that we might be able to use to address in response to the tariff issue.
Question, concerns, Council Carpenter? Yep.
Yes, I'm fine, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I have a question for staff on this, and can you explain for the public, the purchase price, why there's been a change in the purchase price?
So to the mayor and council, so the $1 million purchase offer was conditional on the due diligence period and the completion of that period. We understand that the purchaser has completed the due diligence. It's been quite extensive. There's a full breadth of technical work that has been completed, and that work is quite costly. Based on the results of that technical due diligence, staff are of the opinion that the purchase price, the reduction in the offer, is appropriate and will ultimately help the developer to realize, and the city to realize, the full potential and redevelopment feasibility of this site, and see it develop as sort of that landmark vision in which council had always intended.
So in common parlance, what happened was the real estate deal, prior to agreeing to the 1 million, the purchaser did not really have an opportunity to examine the property, investigate the property in any kind of detail. Due diligence means that's the process they go through doing kind of detailed archaeological studies, looking at some initial engineering assessments of the property, the challenges of building on that property. And through that due diligence period, it was determined that there was more information obtained, that there are some challenges, not surprisingly, given what the Y and Laurier had building the Y building, that they've now been able to quantify that. They provided that information to staff, and staff made the recommendation to us that it was appropriate to have that price reduction, given the not completely quantified, but much more known about what the challenges are building on that particular lot. Is that a fair summary?
That is a fair statement. That's correct. So the purpose of the due diligence allows the developer to gauge and understand the feasibility of the development of the property. That process is now complete. So while the purchase price has been recommended to be reduced, staff are of the opinion that this is a milestone in this process. It'll allow for the transaction to occur and allow us to move on to working with the developer based on that technical due diligence, and more work to come to finalize those development plans and start to see some movement on that property.
Yeah, and to some degree, in some ways, it's really not that much of a surprise, given what we know the Y had to spend in Laurier on doing the archaeological studies for the Y building. And I think that was in like $6 or $7 million.
That's correct. I mean, staff as well as city council have always been aware that there are significant constraints to development on that property, whether we're looking at grade alone. It will be challenges, but we are confident that we're working with a proven developer in this community. And so again, we feel that the purchase price is appropriate given the amount of work that we know will need to occur, from relocation of services to further technical work to geotechnical studies and so on. We do feel that it is appropriate.
Yeah, and I can say this, though. I think it's extremely exciting. This was an initiative begun by the last council. It's been a long time. It's a key piece of property in our downtown. It's the western gateway to our downtown. We've got a builder that's now committed through a purchase. We've seen conceptual plans from the builder. We saw those 3-4 years ago. Mr. Bradley and I have also met with the developer to see, again, some of their conceptual plans that will mutate into detailed site plans. But it's actually very exciting. They're going to be they're going to be towers, like apartment towers. That's what we saw in the original concept. Spectacular views. hopefully a very not archaeological, but architecturally dynamic buildings, but also interesting discussion with the builder developer along the lines that if the city is committing to construct the sports and entertainment center, they would entertain and consider the inclusion of a hotel and conference center. I mean, that's a prime example of the kind of catalyst spin-off impact of doing something like a sports and entertainment center. So a very exciting development. This is a milestone in it. Certainly there's much more to come in terms of detailed site plans and zoning and building heights, but it's taken a long time to get to this point. I think it's extremely exciting. So, Councilor Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to thank staff for the report and for their comments. It reinforces what I've been saying for years. Every time we come up with some new scheme to give money to businesses downtown, the argument is that it costs so much more to do things in the downtown. Well, okay, it does, but that should be reflected in the purchase price of the property. You shouldn't overpay for a property and then expect the city to make up the difference with some kind of grant. This is something that proves that point. They've come back and asked for a lower price because they've run into difficulties doing something in the downtown. They didn't come asking for a grant. They're not looking for any kind of facade improvement grant or downtown improvement grant. They asked for a lower price to reflect the value of the property. And that's what every developer should do. They should buy the property for the appropriate price, whether it's from the city or from the private sector, and go ahead and do their development without coming to the city hat in hand asking for a handout. That's not the way to do business. We have a company here that did their due diligence. They found what the problems were, and they asked for that to be reflected in the price. That's what every developer should do. And unfortunately, some of them don't. They pay what is the going rate for a greenfield site, only to find out they've got all these problems because they're building in the downtown. So I support this 100% because this is what is appropriate, what should be done. And especially when they're buying from the private sector. We've seen when we did Harmony Square, we saw a property purchaser who bought up properties cheap, and we give him a bonus for assembling the properties. Well, he got the properties cheap because he let his own properties run down next door and devalued the property. And then we give him a bonus for that. So we went certainly the wrong way then, and this is definitely the right way to go. And I think staff's comment reflect that. And I appreciate their honesty and integrity in this.
Councilor McCreary.
Well, this certainly is good news. It's been more than a decade since we sent 42 heritage buildings to the landfill. The longest intact collection of pre-Confederation buildings. However, that's water under the bridge. I do have questions. My first question is there a caveat on this property as we have on industrial properties requiring the commencement of work or the opportunity to buy back?
So through the chair to the counselor, without getting into the fine details of the agreement, yes, there are performance measures built into this project. We do, as I mentioned previously, this is the first step. This is a milestone in terms of the actual transaction, so changing hands of this property. There will be future Planning Act applications that will be required, and then we'll work our way through the planning process, which could take some time, obviously, to complete.
Does the developer have a roadmap that gets him to construction by a particular date?
So through our conversations and our ongoing work with the developer, part of our planning process will be to roadmap those steps. As I mentioned, they are a proven developer in this community. They've worked with us and worked with this council before. So they are well aware of our process, and I think that they are, have the ability to take this project from conception to actual construction.
And this was part of a land assembly that we expropriated from a number of prior owners. Have we paid all those folks yet?
Through the chair to the counselor, I don't have that information available today.
Okay. All right, I don't either. That's why I asked. Thank you.
Call the vote.
Item 5.1, resolution carries on recorded vote of 10-0, noting Councillor Sluss is no longer in attendance. Members of council voting in favor, Councillors Sullivan, McCreary, Hunt, and Toborg, Samuel, Carpenter, Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
Okay, we'll move on to bylaw, what we've done today. If I can get a mover and seconder, and Mr. Clerk, if you could pop up on the screen, if you could share with the reading of the bylaws. And Council McCreary is Mayor of the Month. You're gonna have to read these.
Thankfully, it's brief, Mayor. Seconder is going to be Councillor Martin. Leave be given to the mover and seconder who introduce the following bylaws for the first and second reading. Bylaw 22-2025. Being a bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw 151-2023, being a bylaw to approve the sale of lands municipally known as 23 through 29 Colbert Street and being commonly referred to as Colbert Point lands. Bylaw 23-2025, a bylaw to authorize the execution of agreements individually dated and listed on Schedule A attached here too. Number 1, agreement of purchase and sale between the city of Brantford and 100160995 Ontario Inc., being 23 through 29 Colbert Street, Brantford, Ontario. And bylaw 24-2025, the ever popular bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford with respect to the special city council meeting held today.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, call the vote.
The first and second reading of all bylaws carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-0. Members of council vote in favor, Councillors Sullivan, Celeste McCurry, Hunt, Van Toborg, Samuel Carpenter, Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
We get a mover and seconder for third and final reading of those bylaws. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Caputo. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, let the clerk call the vote. Jumping again.
The third and final reading of all bylaws carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-0. Members of council vote in favor, Councillor Sullivan, Celeste McCurry, Hunt, Van Toborg, Samuel Carpenter, Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
All right, so the special city council meeting is adjourned. Committee of the whole will reconvene at 6 o'clock or shortly thereafter with Councillor McCurry in the chair.